All right, Anne Giudicelli runs the International Intelligence Cluster, and she consults on security issues, and she joins me now from Paris. Hi, Anne.
Hi.
I sort of make a practice of asking people during COVID-19 how they're doing. I mean, you are under lockdown as we speak, and we are
Yes,
about to
correct.
go under lockdown in London yet again.
Yeah, I think it's more and more. I mean, we have more and more countries that are in our case. Well, let's see. We have a double lockdown, one which is linked to health, and the other one to security, because as we went through three attacks in 1 month, terrorist attacks. So, well, with a big protest, I mean, criticism coming from the Muslim countries. So we have, let's say, three crises to handle nowadays: security, health, and diplomatic. So it's let's say it's not a holiday.
And what is the mood there like? I mean, there has been more security deployed to the street, invisible security, I understand, around churches and historic sites and that kind of thing. The army, actually, right?
Yeah, well, it's part of a system which was already existing, which is called the Vigipirat, which has been raised to the almost the highest level. That means having more security forces in the street. And I mean, well, it's not specific to this time. It's to this period. It's anytime there is any attack or a suspicion of attack, it's much more linked to show that
A visible deterrent.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I mean, but it's much more to, let's say, deter any willing to do something, or even to reassure the people that they are in a safe situation, because they can see uniforms and forces in the streets. So it's much more, I mean, for that than to really prevent terrorist attack.
I covered a lot of the terror attack in France, so I've been to Paris many times after the attacks on Charlie Hebdo and the Bataclan theater attacks, and they are some of the most bloody, shocking terror attacks that I have covered. But I mean, Bataclan theater was a horrendous event, and I'm sure people cannot forget there. And plus all of the shootings and the cafes leading down the street towards Bataclan. And I mean, at that time, you know, there were these tremendous marches in France and through Paris, you know, Je suis Charlie, we are Charlie. And people really came out despite the publication of these cartoons and supported Charlie Hebdo. Is this different?
Well, you know, first of all, what the meaning of being Charlie? I mean, everybody can understand it differently. Being Charlie could mean being for a certain kind of freedom of expression, but being Charlie could also mean that we like those caricatures or cartoons, which is not the case of the whole people in France. So you can put a lot of understanding in that. You can be Charlie, who not being Charlie, but not against Charlie, if you want. That means that we not all people are, let's say, agreeing with such satirical cartoons, but they all agree for freedom of expression. You understand the small
The distinction, yeah.
yeah, distinction between the two.
Right, but that distinction is lost on another culture because people who follow the Muslim faith believe that they are insulting the Prophet Muhammad. You know, one with a bomb in his turban, another one with him crawling on the ground. They're associating the Prophet Muhammad with attacks of terror and extremism. And so to them, it's insulting, and it is not freedom of expression. And yet to the French public, you have this term, and maybe you can explain it to me a little bit, and it is laicite, and laicite, which essentially means secularism.
Yeah, laicite, yes, right. It's secular state, yeah, secularism. In fact, that means that, well, also, you see, it's very important to use the proper word, because it's not, as well as Charlie, is not understood in the same way. The laicite or secularism is according to who is using it or who is understanding it, it's not the same reality, you see.
No,
So
in what way?
Sorry?
In what way is it different depending on
Because
who's using it?
some, you have a trend here that I call the laicist, like we said, the Islamist. If you take the word laïc, which is for laicite, let's say secularist, if you want, that means that they are activists in promoting laicity against religions, which is not at all the real meaning of laicite or secularism.
Secularism, I mean, historically in the French state and the Republic was the separation between church and state, wasn't it? And to push the Catholic Church out of the state affairs, wasn't it?
But there was, first of all, in the history, you have an agreement with the Catholicism, then with the Judaism, I mean the Jewish community. Now it seems that it could be the turn of the Muslim community. So, but the real meaning of laicity, is that everybody can have his own faith, live his own faith, but in the public space, you are only one community. That means that you don't have to show your difference, which is completely another system that the one in the United States or in the UK, or it's not at all the same approach. It's one community is the nation. Nation is full of the same citizen, and if they have some differences like religion, so they have to leave that in their private circle, not to show up with that. That's a bit complicated even to understand for the French people, in the meaning that sometimes let's say in some territories, just to let's say to please some association, you will allow them to have specific hours for swimming pool for girls in the swimming pool or something like that. It's just because they will get some votes, of course. I think the majors, for instance, but that what I wanted to say is that now the laicist trend or wing is trying to use the laicity as an arm, a weapon against Islam. That's now things how they are moving, and it is perceived now abroad, specifically in the Muslim countries, like that. So we are now in that debate, and me on my side, I really try to warn the authorities and the opinion that the republishing of the cartoon, Charlie Hebdo's Prophet Muhammad cartoons, was a very, very threatening message to.
That's very interesting. I want to just clarify. I want to be clear, because you make a distinction between the original publication and the republication, and
Absolutely.
You believe that the republication was a provocation.
Yes, I mean, not a provocation, but it doesn't mean freedom of expression in that case. I mean, because, you know, a very small group, I mean, Charlie Hebdo's cartoon have become like the flag of the freedom of expression, which is not is not so shared within the French opinion. But as they are being victim of terrorist attack, they let's say being a victim doesn't allow to lose the understanding of the world in which we are. And
why doesn't President Macron just condemn the republishing of the cartoon? Why doesn't he say, look, we understand the sensitivities of the Muslim population. We support the original publication, but republication obviously is causing bloodshed and division within society. Just don't you know, I'm not going to ban you from publishing them, but it was wrong to publish them. Why won't he take that step? Or do you believe that that's something he shouldn't do, that he should stand up and by supporting free speech, he should support those cartoons no matter what?
Yeah, it's exactly what former President Chirac has done more than, let's say, 14 years ago, when he just said that he was very angry with the publishing at the time, because that will make the world, Muslim world, very angry, and they will not understand that I mean, that in explanation. So what I mean, what is happening nowadays was very predictable, and but the fact, as I said previously, as Charlie Hebdo has been attacked, they are like sacralized. They are like holy people, you know. That means that you cannot tell them, well, it's not good what you are doing, because we understand you have been victim. So that has impacted the debates, and that really put President Macron in a very complicated solution, as there is, I mean, the opposition.
You're right. Okay, I wanted to ask you, because the opposition, like Marie Le Pen, who is far right and is by a lot of estimates Islamophobic, is that because he has elections coming up, Macron, he has to play to the far right to some degree. I mean, is that unfair, or do you think that that's what's taking place?
Well, he's between two, let's say, track and also trap, we can say as well. You have the trap of the right, extreme right wing, of course, that is in position now to use what is going on against the Macron's policy. And as well, you have the, let's say, the laicist people. I mean, those people who are like, you know, a majority in the media, or in the, let's say, in certain intellectual circle, that say we cannot touch our freedom of expression. If you touch to the cartoon, you will touch the whole, our whole value of freedom of expression. And you have a third voice that I do represent, which is, I mean, freedom of expression doesn't mean that you have to, let's say, humiliate people. And I remember the Obama speech in 2009, when he addressed the Muslim world in Cairo, and telling that when you attack one belief, you just attack the whole of them. So he really addressed a very, very good speech, and I try to to not to put it as a model, that what we could do, what the President Macron could do now, instead of having, let's say, a kind of very military speech, you know, very strong and defensive
terror speech, that kind of thing.
Obama at that time was using a very positive speech, and let's say toward the Muslim people, not the Muslim states. So he contributed to give some humanity and depoliticize, well, if we can say that, the debates on is the Islam compatible with the Republic or the democracy. So
do you think if Macron had been more conciliatory and found more middle ground, rather than making this tough on terror speech, if he had come out and said, look, we condemn terror, we condemn what happened in Nice, we condemn violence at any stage, but we also ask for sensitivity to religious symbols that may anger the Muslim population, not as a sign of surrender, but as a sign of inclusion, do you think that would have taken the temperature down a little bit? And why couldn't he do that? I mean, he must have known what he was doing.
Yeah, sure. You know, differently than Chirac, he doesn't know very well this part of the world. But if you notice at the beginning, he said something during his campaign, telling that the war in Algeria was, you know, a mistake, and colonization was a crime of humanity. It was something that is very far from his position nowadays. So we can understand that. I mean, I'm sure that he really he doesn't like the cartoons, those cartoons, but it's too late anyway nowadays, because all the consequences, the impact of not only the republication of Charlie Hebdo's cartoon, but also what he said about this radical Islam and what he calls the separatism, which is fighting against the communities which are living in France, but not in compliance with the French system, Republic. So that has not been well understood, and also very well instrumentalized by, of course, Muslim Brotherhood, Ikhwan Muslimin, and other countries like Turkey, who jumped on the occasion.
Yeah, President Erdogan certainly, called him crazy to some degree, and you have leaders around the world and demonstrations around the world against France now, and Macron really making it out to be that France is against Muslims, even though France has taken in so many Muslims.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are now. I mean, I'm really promoting. I advocate the fact that we have to dialogue, explain what is our system, put more value of, I mean, what the French Muslim have brought to our success or our country. You know, all positive things that could a bit cool down and recreate some canal of dialogues and respects and
because right now the divide is growing, and it's just the promise of more bloodshed and more conflict. Do you think?
There's many consequences. First of all, of course, security consequence on the territory, but also abroad, because the risk is to have simultaneous attacks in France and in another country against French targets, interests or individuals. And the second one is diplomatic. That means that France would not be able to make its voice heard anymore. And thirdly, of course, economical consequences, because some country could choose not to buy some to sign big deals, you know, with the French big companies, because they are French. So we cannot trust anymore French people, and we don't want to have them on our ground. So things like that. So the only thing to do is to at least to hold another narrative about the Muslims in France and how we consider the Muslim civilization and those things, you know, the counter influence, even some psyops, I don't know, to counter the propaganda that in some country are handled by Ikhwan Muslimin and all the radical trends that France is fighting.
Anne Giudicelli from the International Intelligence Cluster. And great to talk to you. Thank you for being generous with your time.
Thank you.